It's a mechanical sculpture inspired by wind and built to echo flight.
Pagani is definitely the jet fighter of the hypercar world.
A hypercar that's equal parts high performance and artistic masterpiece.
It's a one man's vision, and you see that in every single part of the car.
Ultra exotic art that comes with an ultra hefty price tag.
And there are expensive cars, and there are really expensive cars, and then there are cars that cost well over $1 million.
Art and engineering that transcend the realm of the supercar.
He's taking it to the next level where he's setting his supercar apart by trying to make it as perfect as possible.
A piece of automotive perfection called the Pagani Huayra. Nothing about this car is ordinary. Its engine cranks out 730 horsepower, almost double most sports cars. It has a top speed of 372 kilometers per hour, 1/3 the speed of sound. It costs 850,000 euros, nearly 34 times the price of an average car. The Pagani Huayra is one of the most exotic hypercars ever built, and it's all a dream of just one man.
My name is Horatio Pagani. I'm chief designer at Pagani.
In the small Italian town of San Cesario sul Panaro, Horatio Pagani is leading an automotive renaissance.
For the last 125 years of the automobile, the most special cars have come from the visions of one man.
Horatio Pagani really fancies himself an artist as much as an engineer.
It's one guy, and it's his vision of a supercar, and it's a world crowded with supercars.
This is the home of Pagani Automobili, where Horatio Pagani has set out to do the unthinkable, build his very own supercar company.
Pagani kind of came out of nowhere, much like Lamborghini did many, many years ago.
In 1999 at the Geneva Auto Show, Pagani takes the world by storm when he introduces his very first car, the Zonda.
I was at Geneva Motor Show, the quintessential automotive show amongst all the car exhibitions, with a car designed, built, and planned by me.
The machine wows critics and car fans alike.
All of a sudden, here's this car that's so great to look at and to listen to and observe and touch and feel that it captured the imagination of car people all over the world.
The Zonda is an ultra-lightweight, mid-engine exotic, featuring a hand-built Mercedes-Benz AMG V12. The machine becomes a poster child for a new automotive term, the hypercar.
I'm very pleased that because of the Zonda, a new category has been created, the hypercar.
For years, the number of machines capable of breaking the 300-kilometer-per-hour barrier was small. And for good reason. At that speed, a car covers the length of a football field nearly every second.
Supercars back in the 80s could do 150, 180 miles an hour maybe. Now your standard supercar will do over 200 miles an hour. We've started using the term hypercars.
One of the cars that helps define the new term is the Pagani Zonda.
Until the Zonda, hypercars didn't exist. After the Zonda, we now have the hypercar.
We're calling these hypercars, for lack of a better word, because we're well over 700 horsepower. Just extreme territory, extreme cost, extreme power, extreme performance. Supercar isn't a strong enough word. It's a hypercar now.
The 2000s were very prolific years in the hypercar world. Those years saw the birth of extraordinary vehicles, built by the premier designers.
Today, there are at least 30 cars that can break 321 kilometers per hour. The term hypercar distinguishes the truly high performance and exclusive from the merely out of reach.
I'd like to think that hypercars are more exclusive. What hypercars do differently is they make the whole experience special. The inside's nice, they're really crafted well, they're beautiful, they're not just there to go crazy fast.
At first, both Horatio and his Zonda are dismissed by critics, since the company has no track record.
When we first saw the Zonda, we all kind of thought, oh, that's interesting looking, we'll never see it.
While the Zonda shocks the world, its success shouldn't. Horatio Pagani has been beating the odds for a very long time. Born on the 10th of November 1955 in Argentina, Horatio builds his first race car at the age of 20. By 1983, his passion for speed brings him to Italy as the chief of engineering at Lamborghini. His crowning achievement is the Countach Evoluzione, the world's first car with a carbon fiber frame. Horatio sees lightweight carbon fiber as the future of the supercar genre. His bosses at Lamborghini disagree. So in 1991, Horatio leaves to start his own firm.
It takes a strong person to form a company and stick to what you want and make sure that the final product comes out looking like what you wanted it to with all the compromises inherent in engineering a car.
Horatio's vision is to do the impossible, start his own supercar company. A feat that doesn't happen very often in the automotive world.
Pagani has created a brand out of really nothing, and it's an amazing thing.
Pagani is a little bit more on the side of art and theater than perhaps some of the other titans of the automotive industry, but he's definitely one of them.
Exact figures are elusive, but in the brand's first 15 years of existence, they sell around 150 Zondas.
You're never going to see another Pagani at a red light next to you, and I think that's part of the appeal.
Those 150 machines only end up in the hands of the wealthiest individuals in the world.
Pagani exists in a really rarefied air. Only the richest guys in the world who really love cars have one of these.
Owning a Pagani not only requires tremendous wealth, but also an appreciation for the machine's styling.
Pagani has sort of carved out a niche in that world, and he's building his own thing, and his customers are sort of part of that vision now.
15 years after the machine's introduction, the Zonda is growing long in the tooth. And when you build only one model, that can spell financial disaster.
The biggest risk for Horatio Pagani is that people get tired of Paganis. He's got a very niche business. He's selling a small number of extremely expensive hand-built cars to extremely wealthy customers. And extremely wealthy customers can sometimes be very fickle.
With the Zonda aging, Pagani's ultra-exclusive customers clamor for a new machine.
I mean, you've got to have a follow-up act.
Horatio Pagani has spent 15 years basking in the glory of a universally revered hypercar. Now he needs a follow-up. His answer is to start from scratch. Focusing not just on higher performance figures, but also a greater artistic expression.
Entrare proprio in tutti I dettagli.
To be immersed in all of the details, even the most hidden, to try to convey the art behind it.
It takes 5 arduous years to perfect the Huayra's styling.
E questa macchina doveva esprimere tutta la creatività, tutta la fantasia mia e
This car needs to express all the creativity, my imagination and that of my team, and all of the highly skilled labor and artistry of all the artisans who work at Pagani and at our partners.
The Pagani design team creates 8 scale models, as well as 2 full-size models. Each evolves the machine's look until Horatio is finally satisfied.
Quando invece pensai alla Huayra, pensai a una cosa diversa.
When I thought up the Huayra, I thought of something different. A different engine, inspired by the idea of the wind. Different weight distribution, measurements, suspension, frame, all completely different.
The bodywork is styled by Horatio himself. The standout feature is a two-part active aerodynamic system.
Una nuova sfida.
The new challenge. This is the first car in the world with active aerodynamics. These flaps move, and the car changes its distance from the ground because it works like a wing.
The machine features airplane-inspired flaps at each corner. The flaps move independently and alter the amount of downforce the Huayra experiences. Downforce is similar to the principle of lift that helps airplanes take off, only it's turned upside down. Instead of taking off, downforce pushes a car into the ground.
E questo la gente che lavora nel mio team è gente capace.
The people working on my team, they can perceive the laws of physics, geometry, math, science, technology, all through an artistic lens.
The second part of the aerodynamic system is harder to see, but perhaps even more important. The suspension automatically lowers the front of the machine to increase the Huayra's angle of attack. Together, the two parts of the active aerodynamic system reduce drag. Drag is the amount of resistance an object faces as it travels through the air. The lower the drag, the easier it is to slice through the wind, and the faster it can go. The Huayra's two-pronged approach reduces the coefficient of drag from 0.37 to 0.31, effectively shrinking the machine in size by 1/6. Davide Testi is the chief test driver for the brand. He's responsible for testing every component of the new machine.
8 years ago, Ms. Pagani started speaking about the new car, and after this, we can start the project.
Davide tests the new machine for 4 years.
It's not too easy to build another supercar like Zonda.
He drives over 1 million kilometers in one of 5 Huayra prototypes. That's 46 times the average distance an American travels per year in a car.
It's very strange because it's like the first meeting with a new goal, you know?
After 7 years of hard work, the Huayra is introduced to the world in 2011. It immediately puts other exotic car manufacturers on notice, raising the bar in every measurable automotive category.
When it debuted in Geneva, it was, the star of the show. Everyone was surrounding it, everyone wanted to check out every single little tiny detail.
The Huayra blasts from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 3.2 seconds. It hits 200 kilometers per hour in just 9.8 seconds. In a mere 25.8 seconds, it crosses the 300 kilometer per hour mark. That's faster than a jumbo jet at takeoff. To power the Huayra, Pagani once again turns to one of the most legendary automotive brands in the world.
So the engine comes from Mercedes-Benz. It comes from their performance subsidiary, AMG.
We have many things to offer for him because love for details is what we like too.
When Horatio first discusses the new machine with the famed engine tuners, he asks for a newer, more powerful V12 engine.
The Pagani V12 is a very interesting and exciting story for AMG. We got the order to make the highest performance engine we ever made, and that was the challenge we are searching for every day.
The team spends over 1,000 days exploring possibilities. Their response is simply called the M158.
AMG is special because they've always concentrated on insanity. AMG stuff has always been about lunacy. This company exists to make insane cars, insane engines, and you know, the proof is that it wound up in an insane Pagani.
AMG's solution is to add turbochargers. Something that Horatio Pagani isn't keen on, because historically it adds a small delay in throttle response called turbo lag.
There's the special turbo lag, everybody knows it, we don't like it, and nobody wants to feel the turbo lag, of course.
The turbochargers also offer tremendous efficiency. The Huayra uses around 20 liters per 100 kilometers, unheard of fuel economy for a hypercar.
Normally it's not so easy in the life of engineers to have two advantages, but in this case we have more power and less consumption. We don't have much time to do it. That was a little bit pressure.
It takes the AMG team 3 years to perfect the power plant.
It's Mercedes' most powerful modern engine, and in the Pagani, it makes even more horsepower.
Pagani's V12 produces almost twice as much torque as a Ferrari 458, and 2.5 times the grunt in a base Porsche 911. All that power is built in a very artisanal way by one man on one assembly line.
It's not a regular production line engine. It's one guy who builds this engine, and that's something really special.
Building the Huayra's engine is the responsibility of Michael Kubler, one of just 2 men who are allowed to put Pagani engines together.
It's really an honor to be one of the 2 who are able and allowed to build it.
Even when you're a talented engine builder handcrafting one of the rarest V12s in the world, you still get starstruck.
I've met him once when he has showed us his Pagani Huayra. I'm a petrol head, and to see one other petrol head who has passion for cars, it's crazy, it's an honor.
From start to finish, it takes just 8 hours to build a Pagani V12 engine. That's roughly 90 horsepower per hour. And there are more than 500 parts. The first step is swinging the massive engine block onto a specially designed cart.
After that, we get the crankshaft in it.
Then it's time for 12 very special pistons, each one installed by hand.
After the crankshaft, we made the pistons.
The timing chain is added, oil pan, and cylinder heads. Michael installs the steering case and engine covers. Finally, the brightest piece on the engine, and it's most important, the turbochargers.
The turbocharger takes the air that normally comes into the engine, compresses the air, and brings it compressed into the engine.
The turbochargers force 2 times as much air into the engine as a normally aspirated power plant. During a top-speed run, the engine will consume 400 liters of oxygen per hour. That's 70% of the amount of oxygen a human being breathes in a single day.
After the turbo, the air intake, which is very special for the Pagani Huayra, has a bigger one than the other V12 engines from AMG. After the air intake, we have the gold cover, like this, what is a symbol of art, would I say.
Engines are run at full speed for 30 minutes. Then, the massive engine heads to Italy. While the engine is being shipped in another part of Italy, over 400 unique parts are exquisitely CNC milled by sub-supplier Asper.
Here at Asper, we manufacture many parts for Pagani automobiles.
What lies within these walls is a candy store of the choicest automotive bits.
You might say the pieces are artisanal, but achieved by industrial means, because these are very small batches produced with great precision, a precision that even transcends industrial standards.
Not only are the parts extreme, but the tolerances are too.
The tolerances requested are on the order of thousands of millimeters, microns.
1,000th of a millimeter, or 1 micron, is a little smaller than a spiderweb strand.
Certo, certamente.
Absolutely, it's a modern sculpture. Obviously, we can't compare ourselves to Michelangelo, because he worked with his hands. That was much more difficult. We can say this is a modern sculpture, achieved using CNC machines.
Aspa applies that level of precision to over 400 parts for the Huayra. CNC milled parts aren't just good for outside appearances. Inside the cabin, the ignition key is milled from aluminium as well, at a cost of €2,900. When all those expensive pieces are finally finished, it's time to ship them to San Cesario sul Panero, Italy. Automotive visionary Horatio Pagani has spent 7 years trying once again to push the boundaries of the hypercar envelope.
We're at a point in the history of the automobile where everything is fast. When you have a family sedan that can keep up with a 10-year-old supercar, what are you going to call the stuff that's one step ahead of that?
Pagani stays ahead of the competition, one cut, one bolt, and one car at a time. Inside of a facility located on a tiny side street in a small industrial park, where 53 craftspeople endeavor to be perfect. While the building might be small, the ambition is grand.
La Huayra è una macchina che racchiude.
The Huayra brings together so many new technologies, particularly in the realm of composite materials. Technologies that have been studied for years. I've worked with them for 30 years.
Horatio Pagani's passion for carbon fiber starts as a young man. For the next 30 years, he masters his craft. His speciality is creating a carbon fiber monocoque.
A monocoque is a carbon fiber tub. It's basically the passenger compartment and the safety cell.
Monocoques are first developed for Formula One race cars. Eventually, they find their way into exotic hypercars.
It's basically how race cars are built.
Inside the Pagani factory, craftspeople build the Huayra's carbon fiber tub by hand.
We're in the section where we construct the carbon fiber components.
Carbon fiber monocoques are extremely expensive to build. But Pagani's cost even more.
Pagani weaves in titanium, and the titanium makes that mat stronger, so the plastic portion is less. Less plastic means less weight and more strength.
The carbon fiber titanium monocoque is the company's signature feature. Every single one is made in-house.
Pagani doing all their carbon fiber work in-house is an incredibly unique thing today.
The process starts with a roll of cloth.
Now we're looking at the area where the material is cut, which takes place in a separate room from the regular production process. Our material, our carbon fiber, comes to us in rolls.
It's basically a bolt of cloth and glue, and you put those two things together and you get an incredibly lightweight and strong structure.
They use a custom cutting machine to maximize the material and limit waste. Once shapes are cut, unique kits are made up of 222 components.
La Huayra è composta da 222 componenti.
The Huayra is made up of 222 components made of composites. Each component is made up of, on average, 4 layers of carbon fiber. I say on average. because some of the components are made up of many more layers. But I can't say much more about that because it's a trade secret.
Once the carbon fiber kits are done being prepped, they head to what's called the clean room.
In questo reparto, praticamente...
In this department, the pre-cut carbon fiber skids are applied to the molds. This is where the piece takes shape.
The pre-cut shapes are applied to a mold and resin is added before pressure is applied.
Una volta che si finisce questa...
Once we finish the process we call lamination, that is the multi-layer phase, all of these layers are pressed together. Why? To create a vacuum.
It takes 5 sheets of carbon titanium to make one Pagani Huayra tub.
The sheets of carbon titanium used in the Huayra make posh wallpaper look inexpensive.
Just one sheet of this carbon titanium weave is $500 per square meter, and it's only 1 millimeter thick.
After the molds are vacuum sealed, they're ready for the autoclave, a large oven where heat and pressure combine to bake the Huayra's carbon fiber parts.
Now we're in the section where the components are placed inside the autoclave.
The autoclave cooks Huayra pieces between 120 and 145 degrees Celsius.
Se questo componente viene messo a 150
This piece here, if we expose this to 150 degrees Celsius for 4 hours, it will become deformed, and the resin which has hardened will return to a consistency of honey.
To make a carbon fiber piece, you basically take this mat of carbon fiber fabric, you cut it to the right size, and you put it in the mold, you squeeze down on it really hard, and you bake it in a vacuum.
Each carbon fiber body part is hand-fitted and expertly shaped in a quality control department that's more high-tech laboratory than factory.
Carbon fiber as a fabric it's beautiful, but to get the pieces to match up when you have this 3-dimensional weave is not easy. And the seams on this car are invisible. Their pieces are matched up against each other. That's what you're paying for. If you're the type of person to understand that, you'll really appreciate it.
I mean, you see the way the carbon fiber weave is all fitted together, how it all works together. It's just impeccable, impeccable detail.
The importance of the carbon fiber can't be understated.
This brick, you see, represents what we're doing with our vehicle. It's a brick that weighs less than a kilogram, and it has structural characteristics that are identical to this steel, which weighs 4 kilograms.
The 4-to-1 weight savings helps the Huayra reach incredible speeds. Once the pieces are perfectly fit together, the bodywork heads to paint, while the monocoque heads to the final assembly area.
We are on the first station for the assembly line for the Pagani Huayra. We can see some of the components here. This is the front chassis.
Well, it's an amazing thing to put together a car. A car has more parts than you can probably imagine.
Ordinary automobiles are made up of around 3,000 parts. The Huayra has over 4,700.
When they say there's 50% more parts in a Pagani than there is in a typical car, it's really not that surprising because there's parts on top of parts on top of parts.
Each part speaks to one man's obsessive vision to create automotive art.
I'm not going to diagnose the guy, but he certainly seems to be on the OCD spectrum. The car is just that detailed and perfect. It's just crazy. I mean, it's obsessive.
The attention to detail is expressed by the handwork done by expert craftspeople.
It's hand-assembled. Everything about this car is meticulously thought out. The attention to detail in the Pagani is off the charts, and that's what you would expect for a car that costs so much money and takes so long to build.
In a mass production factory, a new car can roll off the line every 60 seconds. At Pagani, it takes 3 months to build just one Huayra.
They have that kind of buyer who's willing to wait for something that's perfect.
behind every Pagani component, there is the thinking that is art and science can work together.
Every build starts the same way, with the carbon fiber monocoque.
One feature that I believe that is very interesting, that the fuel tank, it is installed inside the monocoque.
They move the front subassembly into place, then bolt it together using special titanium hardware.
Every titanium bolt has the Pagani logo etched on it. I mean, that's the kind of attention to detail that you don't see that anywhere else.
The obsession with details comes with a heady price. A single titanium bolt costs 68 euros, and the Huayra uses 1,200 bolts. Each is lined up precisely.
Titanium bolts that are all indexed in a certain way with the Pagani logo laser etched in them.
A single set of titanium bolts is worth over 81,000 euros, 3 times the average yearly salary in Italy.
You sort of get the feeling that Horatio Pagani wants to use the best, most expensive materials on this car. It's almost like the guy is looking for challenges for himself.
The front subassembly also carries 2 of the Huayra's carbon ceramic Brembo brakes.
We equip our vehicle with a carbon fiber brakes. We have used the carbon fiber brakes because the performance is higher than a standard brakes, let me say.
The 380mm carbon ceramic brakes give the Huayra awesome stopping power.
We can stop our car from 300 kilometers per hour to 0 in less of 7 seconds.
And a single brake disc is 1/10 the length of an entire Volkswagen Beetle.
Typically, a car with a really, really great braking system has 4 times the braking power of the engine.
4 times the Huayra's V12 engine is equal to almost 3,000 horsepower. That's nearly 2 megawatts of energy, enough juice to power 1,000 houses. It's taken Horatio Pagani 7 long years to bring his newest hypercar creation to life. But when you're building automotive perfection, for nearly a decade, Horatio Pagani has been preparing to replace one of the first hypercars. His response is the Huayra, a machine that can blast from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 3.2 seconds, thanks to an AMG V12 engine. The 730 horsepower V12 is bolted to the Huayra's monocoque chassis during rear subassembly installation. There's no clock ticking or rush to get the job done. Each piece is hand-fitted and then refitted until it's perfect. Even though putting the Huayra together is a slow and methodical process, shifting the machine is not. The transmission switches gears in 60 milliseconds. Half the time it would take light to travel around the Earth's equator.
The Huayra has a 7-speed, single-clutch automated manual. Basically, it's a manual that is mechanized and robotized, and it comes from the same company that builds Formula 1 gearboxes.
Unlike many high-end supercars, the Huayra doesn't use a double-clutch transmission.
The official company line is that a dual-clutch unit would have been too heavy.
When Pagani engineers first study their transmission options, they discover that a dual-clutch transmission adds 70 kilograms to the machine, almost double the single-clutch transmission's weight.
It's a single clutch, and that means rough shifts. You could probably argue that getting beat up a little bit inside the car is what it's about.
The team shaves weight on another piece of the drivetrain as well, the titanium handmade exhaust. It weighs a mere 10 kilograms.
And you see that exhaust, and it wraps around, and it comes into these really special mufflers. You don't see these mufflers on regular cars. These look like motorcycle mufflers.
The exhaust is handmade, and yet another piece of metal artwork. While work continues on both ends of the machine, other craftsmen focus on the interior. where the Huayra's aeronautical inspiration is immediately apparent.
When you're inside the car, all the switches are big toggle switches, and you feel like you're in the cockpit of a jet flipping some missile defense or something.
One of the key elements is the openly exposed shifter.
The details in the Huayra are almost like an animal anatomy lesson. He's pulled away all the fat, he's pulled away all the muscle, and you just see the sinews, and that's what you see in the shifter.
The sculptural shifter unit features 60 individual components, and each is on display.
You see all these parts that you'd never ever see in a normal car because they're covered by a console, which is covered by leather. He stripped all of that away, and you see the bare mechanism, which is just beautiful.
Even the switchgear is unique looking.
The gas pedal is beautiful, and the linkage that it moves, nothing you'd ever see anywhere else.
The switchgear imitates clarinet keys. It's just obsessive, really.
Honestly, this cabin is pure concept car. This should never be in a real car because it's too beautiful. The most expensive, best cars in the world are never like this, where every single piece is a piece of art.
The analog instrument gauges are a focal point. Each dial is handcrafted just 35 kilometers away in Bologna, Italy.
The gauge cluster is something that looks like it was made by, like, Rolex.
The fact that the gauges look like a watch face is no accident. They actually are. Chronograph manufacturer Patek Philippe uses it to make watch faces. A set of 4 gauges costs nearly 7,100 euros.
The gauges, they've got a very retro aircraft kind of look, you know, stuff that was functional 70 years ago, but today just looks really cool.
The details in the dashboard are equaled by the distinctiveness of the Huayra's key.
I mean, look at that. It's a billet aluminum piece of gorgeous art with an unlock and lock button on it. Pull it apart, that's the part of the key you shove in.
Horatio Pagani's obsession with weight reduction can be seen in each and every part of the Huayra, even the stereo speakers. The units are built by Sonos Faber, a famed audiophile company located near Vicenza, Italy. The company's name loosely translates to handmade sound. A pair of their household speakers costs up to 157,000 euros.
The main challenge in the Pagani was to stay within a certain amount of weight, because of course you have an extreme high performance car, and the performance is about the ratio between the total weight and the power of the engine.
The Faber system features 1,200 watts of power, which is roughly 4 times the power in an ordinary home stereo.
The techniques we use for the Huayra is something unique, to reproduce. We wanted to achieve the maximum possible quality. The task was the weight.
To remove weight, the team focuses on using carbon fiber materials, just like the Huayra's monocoque frame.
We are using carbon fiber for the cone. It's a special sandwich of material, and we use it for the rigidity and for the weight, of course. We started from a blank sheet of paper and designed all the parts inside to match perfectly with the door.
Those doors are as eye-catching as any in the hypercar universe.
You pull up anywhere in a DeLorean or a Gullwing or a Pagani and you open the doors and traffic stops.
Inside the final assembly facility, each Gullwing door is carefully installed, bolt by bolt.
If you're gonna do a parlor trick like Gullwing doors, a supercar or hypercar is the best place to do it because there is no such thing as kitschy or gaudy when it comes to these cars. The more over the top, the better. And frankly, Gullwing doors are about as over the top as it gets.
After 3 months of nearly fanatical attention to detail, a brand new Huayra is finally ready for the real world.
Pagani is a craftsman, and everything he builds is so detailed. Every little part, you get the feeling that somebody really thought about it and stressed over it and put their life into. It's kind of priceless, and you know, here you have something you can drive.
Nearly half of all Huayras will eventually end up in Asia. Another 30% are destined for the United States. Yet no matter which country a machine calls home, there's only one place a Huayra is meant to be.
Basically, this is a street-going Le Mans prototype. It's got active aero on it, it's got 4 ailerons, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, that react to what the car's doing.
The Huayra's active aero system helps keep it glued to the ground.
The idea behind the ailerons is simple. If the flaps go up, they use the wind to push the car down.
The system kicks in between 100 and 280 kilometers per hour to stabilize the car.
Over 50 miles an hour to stabilize the car and to create a little bit of downforce, all 4 come up about 10 degrees.
In the corners, the flaps deploy to keep the car planted in the turn.
When you're going into corners, they can pop up to 20 just to push down on the car and help it turn.
During heavy braking, the system activates again, this time to generate additional braking force.
And under braking, they pop up to 40 degrees as kind of a parachute.
The Huayra's active aerodynamics package gets the attention, but the machine's power-to-weight ratio is even more impressive.
In terms of power to weight, there's no question the Huayra is at the top of its game. There are very few cars that have this much power, this little weight, and are ultimately this fast.
The Huayra weighs a mere 1,350 kilograms.
The Huayra isn't a heavy car. It's 3,200 pounds, and it's got this huge 6-liter Mercedes V12. It's not light either, and the Huayra still manages to weigh 3,200 pounds, basically because it's all carbon fiber.
Pagani's obsession with weight reduction pays off. The Huayra is an astounding 590 kilograms lighter than a Bugatti Veyron.
Yeah, 3,200 pounds isn't a lot. It's basically a little bit heavier than something like a Volkswagen Jetta, like a typical 4-door economy car. And this car has 720 horsepower and weighs that much.
Driving the Huayra is a high-speed, artistic experience unlike any other.
If there's anything the Italians do better, it's theater. The doors fly open. There are ailerons when you hit the brakes. The car opens up like a clamshell. It's there to say, look at me.
It's a very fast and dramatic performance.
The acceleration is smooth, like when you're sitting on the runway in a jet and they hammer it for takeoff.
The astonishing acceleration has a unique sound, too.
The soundtrack is not like you're used to. You expect a big, loud, thundering exhaust, but this is really like sitting on top of a jet engine.
A jet engine with roots in the highest levels of automotive racing.
You've got a lot of race technology in here. Single clutch, automated gearbox, carbon ceramic brakes, something that F1 uses in a different form.
The racing-inspired tech catapults the machine to a nearly unheard of 372 km/h top speed. Yet the Huayra's speed blasts right past its scarcity.
I've probably driven 2,000 cars in the last couple of years. And I never even thought I'd see a Pagani in person. That's how rare this car is.
I've worked in the industry for 14 years, and I'd never driven a Huayra until today. The only other Pagani I've ever seen was at the Geneva show when they introduced the Huayra a few years ago.
This isn't just a fast car. It's an experience.
That experience starts with a base price of 850,000 euros, has 730 horsepower, and can hit a top speed of 372 km/h.
There's actually a couple of design elements that I think will become really Pagani icons that you're going to see. The 4 exhaust pipes, the 4 headlights, and something else that's really neat is the side view mirrors.
Part sculpture and part jet fighter, and a machine destined to inspire the next generation of automotive enthusiasts.
The world's most perfect woman, where every angle and everything is just art and perfect, and everything she wears is perfect, whether she's wearing it or it's on the floor.
It's a machine that is a testament to one man's vision for automotive perfection.
There's definitely some ego to it, but you know what? The guy started his own supercar company. That's not something that happens every day. Horatio Pagani not only built a supercar, he built a hypercar, one of the most expensive in the world, one of the most finely detailed in the world, and he made a successful business out of it. When you pull off that kind of success, you've kind of earned it.